Hello, everybody. This is Charlene Burke with Grow Because You Know. That's www.growbecauseyouknow.com. Welcome to Morning Mindset Cafe, where today we're discussing Think and Grow Rich of Napoleon Hill. And more specifically, we are talking about if-only syndrome. Do you suffer from if-only thinking? Have you suffered from it? Do you have an answer to it? Do you know how to stop the if-only thinking? So anybody who wants to jump in and share experiences with if-only thinking? Oh, Mads, you're new to the program.
Hello, Charlene. How are you?
Welcome. Nice to see you.
You too. Sorry.
No worries. No worries. Love the shirt. Love the shirt. Fabulous.
I tend to see Maven all over the place, so
yeah. Ken,
he's hunting
are
me
you
down.
guys following each other? Oh my. Well, Mads, so what do you think of this if-only thinking?
Yeah, actually, sorry, I had actually pressed open the seat before you mentioned that. So I'm generally just a big Think and Grow Rich fan. So
Good. Because this is a big thing in the Think and Grow Rich. Suffering from if-only. How do we change that, right?
I think in the end of the day, people are slightly different, right? And I think a lot of it is sort of working with confidence in many areas, right? Because from my personal standpoint, I experienced when I was very young that when you build the confidence and when you actually start believing in yourself, you start seeing the opportunities and get away from that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And really you put yourself in a position where you're able to change the mindset away from away from anything that's that brings you down the route of saying, oh, if just that happened, I'll be happy. If that happened, I'll do all these magical things, right? But instead of just waiting for things, then just taking the initiative and using your confidence to actually go places.
I totally agree. So now the question is, for those who didn't grow up with that and didn't grow up with those tools, I'm glad that we have tools like Think and Grow Rich and other books that have been written since then and those that were written before that Napoleon Hill learned from to show us some of the principles that we can learn and put to use to prevent or to change our thinking from if only to, I don't know what, maybe why not? You know, maybe I see, as you said, see opportunity and jump in and not have to wait or make excuses.
Actually, take Bob as a great example, right? You would see most people just sitting around, sort of lurking and not really knowing what to do. I'm always the opposite, right? I love contributing and I love helping people. So for me, the ability to speak to an audience is great, and it gives you an opportunity to learn, right? I mean, for me, the best way to learn is talking to other people.
I love that. Absolutely. There's no if only there. What if only the headset would fit a little better? You know, I've said that. If only my hair would cooperate, right? If only. And once all that was in place, then I'll jump on. Then I'll be camera ready.
It felt like an indirect call out for people to jump on. You're like, well, you can always sit and lurk in the comments and, and come up with every excuse as to why you shouldn't hop on.
Yes, Matt. Or as Brian says, if only he had hair, then he would be successful, right?
There's a million reasons that you shouldn't do it, right? But all you find that one reason that you should do it, and do it. Why not? Like you said, why not try it?
Okay.
So what do you do in life better?
Sorry, say that again.
No, I was just saying, what do you do, or what's the key goals you're working on?
Like specifically right now, I'm doing a lot of blogging and video making, and I'm doing some writing, some journaling. So I'm hitting it. I'm just like, let's just try stuff and let's create. The problem with me though is I commit to too many things, but I figured I'd pick about 3 things and just go from there. Because I've got a website going, I've got a YouTube channel going, I've got writing going. I'm cooking more.
When did you start cooking?
What's your goal with the whole thing?
Hold on, Mads. I asked him a question. When did you start cooking?
Started cooking about beginning of the year, probably middle of January.
Yeah, see, I thought so. Wasn't something you were talking about last fall.
Or fall, or I can't remember. No, that was like, I started at the beginning of the year. Like I committed to, I think I was mainly brainstorming, but I could smell the cooking clear in Colorado.
Yeah, that's Brian. So at any time before then, did see, I don't see you as an if-only guy, like Mads. It's like, well, I see the opportunity. You said there was too much, but you were able to refine it down to the couple of things you want to focus on.
Absolutely, yeah. It's so easy to have the excuses. Like the if only seems to me, it seems like an excuse, but it also seems like I don't want to do the work right now until everything is perfect, and everything's not going to be perfect. It's like I don't want to.
So now you're taking it beyond just an excuse.
Yeah,
it's more than just an excuse.
Like I don't want to start this thing until every condition is perfect for me to start this thing, and that's just not how. That's just not how life works.
That's the perfect way of looking at it. I do a lot of business coaching, right, where people are always trying to say, what's the right way to go from A to B, right? Where do I go? How do I get there, right? And they spend so long time planning, and the problem is that they're trying to get the ideal setup. And what happens is, as soon as you feel any resistance, as soon as things doesn't go to your plan, you're then like, oh, I give up. It didn't work, right? Whereas if you just get out there, get moving in the right direction, right? It might not be the straight line to where you're going, but some sort of direction towards it, right? Then you get used to getting a few bumps here and there. You get used to things not always going the way you expected. But at the end of the day, you also get used to dealing with it, right? So when things come up, you just say, well, okay, that didn't work, or it didn't work the way I expected. So let me take the best out of that situation.
Exactly. Like, if you do something and you run into adversity, don't complain, because it makes sense, right? You're going to run into adversity no matter what.
Yep, always.
Well, a question I have for Mads that came up. Sorry, Matt. Yep. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm all right.
All right. So a question that occurred to me as you were saying that, Mads, as a business coach, and I'm a consultant, so I hear it a lot myself. I'm wondering... And I think, because I'm thinking of this as me, you, Matt, and those in the audience that are saying, well, I don't really suffer from if only thinking anymore. But when we come across people that we're working with or that we care about that are, what are some ways that maybe we can help? How can you help your business client when they're stuck in that? And your job is to help them move forward.
What I try to do, so a lot of the time you're looking at the end goal, right, and you're using visualization and so on, right? I sometimes try and take it a step back, and I try and say, well, let's find a small thing, right? Let's just pick a small thing that can help you move in the right direction. And instead of saying, oh, I want to be a millionaire tomorrow, right? Say, let's make $100, right? How could you make $100 tomorrow? What would you need to do, right? And that way, basically, build up your confidence through the small victories, right? Because if you show yourself you can make $100, right? Then it's easier to say, well, okay, how can I make 1,000? How can I make 10,000? How can I make 100,000 or a million? Right, so that it's usually the small victories, because I think it depends on people's personality. Because for some people, the big vision is what they need. You just put the big vision in front of them constantly, and they just run right? They just go for it. But for some people, they need a lot of those small victories before they start feeling confident at going at the bigger things, or at least mindset-wise planning to go for the bigger things. So that's how I take some of the concepts and try and sort of break them down a little bit.
Like one
So
bite at a time.
breaking it down to one bite at a time, excellent, Matt, is then a way to remove the if only excuse that
Yeah, and
they're bringing up.
it's a simple question. Most people know. If I ask, what would be the next step? Most people know what they should do, right? So what should be the next step, or what's a good step to take in that direction? I don't need to tell them what to do, right? But I just ask them, and they say, well, I could do this thing. And I say, okay, well, if you haven't tried it, I'll try it.
Love that. Go ahead, Matt. Sorry about that.
Yeah, one bite at a time. Like, I feel like if you take it one step at a time and you see progress day in those small steps, when I like look back and I think about how many blabs I've done since whatever day it was, like October 10th, or I think about the Home Chef, the cooking meals I do, there's 3 meals every week. So we usually do on a day I can stay home and we're not like going out with family or something. And I look back at all the cooking I've done, I go, whoa, like I've made so far this year, like 3 meals each week, all the way back to the beginning of January. So it is about like you get into this it's kind of like a feel good cycle. It's a motivation cycle when you do something and you feel good about what you've done, and then you continue to do it. And I think part of that key too is not to fall off the track. If you get back into the if only thinking, then you stop doing the activity, and it's easy to have like excuses. When you mean like it's deeper than an excuse, what do you mean by that, Charlene?
Well, you started it. What I was going to say as the general umbrella was get stuck in if only thinking means you're just full of excuses to not do the work, or why it's not. You're just full of excuses. And which stops you, which is much easier. It's going to the lazy. I'll sit on my butt and say, well, if only this, then I'll do it. Like you were saying, right? It's an excuse not to do the work. But you went a little deeper to actually explain that there's some things behind that. Yeah. Because sometimes it's not lazy. Sometimes it really is fear from previous experiences. So it's time to take a look at the previous experiences and clear them out of the way. Have somebody like Mads who can say, well, so instead of doing it the big, what does the small look like? What can you do next? Which is a way to get past the fear instead of past the lazy. That's what I meant by going a little deeper. Because the general is you could fluff it off and just say, well, you're full of excuses and move on.
Maybe people fear a lot of change. So maybe taking it in the smaller steps is better for them, because there's not so much at once happening. There's not so much change. And we don't we're humans. We can't deal with so much change, or we don't like to deal with a lot of change all at once. So taking it in small steps would be sort of more of a nudge in change, which is easier to handle than a huge leap.
And I agree and I disagree, right? If I ask most people, do you want a bigger car? They say yes. And a bigger car is change. If I ask them, do you want more salary? They say yes, and more salary is change. So I agree. I agree with fundamentally with the fact that people don't like change, but it's also very much the thing is it's much more a mental thing than anything else, right? So change it's not about the change itself. It's how you perceive, how you protect status quo, right? And it's how you're sort of sitting saying that's the right thing to do. But the key thing for me with the small victories is like personal development, right? You don't actually need to do it all the time. When you first learn the power of personal development, right? When you first take that first 5 steps, you're hooked for life. I mean, you really have to put yourself in a situation, right, where things go completely off track to lose it again. Because if you first get used to the good feeling of, yeah, it's working, I'm moving in the right direction, my experience is you're not going to lose it again.
Yeah, I don't think we lose that level of awareness, and I think that builds a lot of momentum when you start off like that and you have that feeling. Because now, like with me, with the things I do, I look back and I see what I've accomplished, and then I want to keep that momentum going, whether it's picking something new or continuing what I've done. But that energy sort of is
it's also easy for you to take it to other aspects of your life, right? You've done it with cooking, you could do it with studies, you could do it with some kind of work or whatever you want to do, right? But the thing is, when you learn how to learn, right? It's the biggest flaw I have with the public school system is they teach you how to remember stuff, but they don't actually teach you how to learn effectively, right? And for me, that's what personal development is all about. It's learning how to say you want to learn something and then go figure out how to do it, right? That ability to do that is really the most important thing you can learn. Because, I mean, I realize if there's anything in the world I'll learn, I can go online and I can figure out how to do it. I mean, if I wanted to be an astronaut, I'm sure there would be courses and trainings and whatnot that could teach me how to be so, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love that, Mads. I am all about discerning and discernment and teaching people that they can think differently, that they can think for themselves, that I am huge on continuous learning, because it does take away the if-onlys. But even then, I'm going to have to interject. My fear would come up with, well, if only I knew more. Because I know the value of knowledge and I know not going to know everything. So if only I knew more. The battle. Hi, Ron. Welcome.
Hi. I just jumped in and heard talking about change and things, and I think why people don't change, it's not so much they're afraid to change, although that plays a part in it. It's they're so comfortable with what they're doing that making a change would change their routine. And I'm 69 years old, and when I was growing up, you were told, okay, you get a job, you work for the man, and this is what you do. And you then at the end of, when you get to be 65, you retire. But that wasn't in me. For some reason, there must have been somebody in my family that lit a spark in me. I think it was my great uncle. My great uncle's genes got down to me, and that just wasn't me. It's like I had to try stuff. I had to do things. I had to experience it, and I'm eventually moved out of the area where I was born. But I think that's it. People get comfortable collecting a paycheck and not thinking about, well, gee, I could do better on my own. They think, oh, gee, my boss drives a Ferrari or something like that. I'll never have that. Well, you never know unless you try or do something and step out. And what's it going to hurt? Unless you do something scary or risky, you're not going to die from trying something. I went through a bankruptcy, but that was years ago, back in the 70s.
Still here and have some cash in your pocket, don't you?
Yeah, but that, it's like, okay, I feel good now that I tried something that did not work. And then there's other things I've done that did work. So I think it's just a comfort zone, and that people don't want to step out of.
I think that is another piece to it. Again, see, Matt, you can go deeper than it's just an excuse. Yeah. For some, it's the comfort level. And I wonder, as Mads is a business coach, coming on somebody who says they want to grow as a business, I mean, you're either growing or you're going backwards. So you have to move forward, and you have to be on top of, depending on your industry, daily things changing or yearly things or what have you, and change with it. So the if only excuse can actually be detrimental to a business. But personally, I like the idea of what you just said, Ron, that in some cases it's a comfort level. I may be comfortable in my miserable existence.
Yeah, but I would agree with that.
I may be comfortable in this medium existence, and I don't want to challenge myself.
But a lot of the time, people are comfortable complaining. I mean, when you look at many companies out there, right? If you go to the canteen, you see people, like you see 20 people going to lunch, and what do they do every lunch? They complain about the same shit every single day. No, but
I mean,
that's what
Matt's favorite topic.
We complain
Matt's
about everything.
favorite topic. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I was talking about. Okay, was so those people, can we participate in some way in helping them? In some way. I mean, we have our own. Yes, we can walk away and read a book, Matt. I'm just curious.
Yeah, part of it, I think part of it too is being challenged. Is people don't like, whether it's being sincere about something or discussing ideas, people are uncomfortable with being challenged, and not only in a work way but also in a thinking way. I found. Because if I'm if I've talked about this before, if I'm talking to someone, and I'll hop out after this thought, so I have to leave. But when I'm talking to somebody and I want to be sincere with them about a topic, like I want to talk about personal growth, or like what goals are you setting, or what are you creating right now, what value are you creating, and all they want to do is be sarcastic and lash back at me, like, what do I do with that? You know, how do I get somebody to reciprocate being sincere about something?
Well, I don't know if you can.
I don't think you can.
No, I don't think you can. But that's the question, right? Yes,
walk
away, but what do we walk away with? We walk away stronger in our own conviction, being able to be who we are and become attractive to those who become ready. Do we continue to speak our message? Can wear them down with your smile?
I wear them down with positivity sometimes and gratitude. I hear them complain about this and this and this and this and this.
Right.
I'm like, man, this sandwich is delicious. I love this sandwich.
You know, I could see you doing that, Matt. I really can. The insincerity is overwhelming there. All right. So,
all right.
Thank you, dear. Glad you dropped in. Love seeing you this morning. I mean, I'm not saying that we all make it our mission to go out and change anybody. Really, I'm not. I guess what I'm saying is that as I'm becoming much more confident in saying my own message, and I'm hearing those who have their message and continuing to say it, the more confident I become and the more willing I am to continue on the road of personal development, the more open I am to those who are saying the message. So consistency maybe is what I'm going after. And just throwing it out there to help to have someplace else to go for those who are confronted with people who are all about if only. Where are we supposed to go? How do you know? I'm lucky. I'm finding you guys are finding me, and we're finding each other on Blab, so we can get away from the constant barrage of complaining and whining and whinging and all that stuff. Just a thought. What do you think?
I agree. I mean, I think I fundamentally love Blab because it's a way. I mean, one of my biggest problems when I lived back in the UK, for example, was the challenge of finding people that wanted to change, right? I mean, I've always spent a lot of time doing voluntary work and coaching and mentoring people, but actually finding people that really want to make a change is so difficult. And if you have to spend half your life trying to convince something about the great thing of doing shit with your life, that's not the best way to use my time, at least, right? So I moved to the Philippines here in Asia, so I'm now in a place where people really want to change, right? Both because
what a wonderful feeling that is.
If the thing is, out here it's more a life or death thing, right? I mean, in the UK it's like if people don't want to work, well, they can sit at home and the government throws money after them, right?
Right.
But out here, I mean, if people don't work, they don't eat, and if you don't eat, life is not very cool, right? So people are like they're forced to grow, but they're also a lot more keen to explore because of that, right?
So the if-onlys are taken away. They can't be lazy. They can't be.
But
well, the consequences are much more dire.
Exactly.
But actually what I'm hearing, and that's not even what I'm hearing, I guess what I heard was that that there's more people that are willing to change and grow and learn in the Philippines where you are as compared to UK.
Definitely.
The numbers are greater there. And you can
Well,
attribute it, and there's a direct correlation to, well, you know, if I don't do this, you know, the consequences are more dire than just living on a government dole.
I mean, I would say I'm from Denmark, where we actually have a lot more social welfare and so on than they have in the UK, right?
Okay.
But generally, and that's a cultural thing, I guess. Generally, Danish people are just much more driven. There's always exceptions, but just in general, right? I mean, UK is for me let's call it not the laziest country I've been to, but it's a country where the majority of people are just happy with the 9 to 5, right? And it's in like, oh yeah, I want to work. I don't want to hassle. I don't want to have to work late. I just want 5 days some work, and then I can go home weekend, and I don't have to think about things. If I run my own company, well, it's stressful. It's like they much rather want to complain about the 9 to 5, for example, right? And that's an attitude I've seen a lot stronger in the UK than anywhere else in the world I've been.
How interesting is that? Have you been to the US?
Yes, a lot.
Okay. I'm thinking it's difficult to say about the U.S. in general, just simply because of the diversity. I mean, from town to town, city to city, state to state is such a different culture within each, whereas the UK is a much smaller area. So, as Denmark is, am I correct in that assumption?
Yes,
Okay.
Denmark is tiny. We have a massive 5 million people. So.
Yeah. That's the size of one of our cities, which makes sense because each city, and I can, that's how I relate to it. And I think, so if that's the size of one of our cities, if I go into a city, I can go into Detroit, which is a very different feel. And I don't care what year you go in. It's still a very different feel than if I go to Atlanta, Georgia. Similar size city, right? Which is a very different feel than if I go to Houston, Texas. Again, it's just a microcosm, that community, whatever that may be, and interesting.
I have a friend, Bill Graham, lives in Belize. He's an ex Canadian, has dual citizenship, but him and his wife moved to Belize, and he was telling me about the children down there that they so want to go to school and get an education. And the parents have to pay for their education down there. They don't. It's not free. They have to pay for it. But the children will do anything. It's summertime. If they can go to school all year round, they go, because they realize if they get an education, they might be able to get out and go to their goal is to get to the United States, where they can.
They can do something.
Yeah, do something. But then Bill says what happens, he says, then they go to the United States or Canada or wherever, he said, and then they get paid these big bucks, and he said they lose the drive that they had when they were younger growing up.
Isn't that interesting?
He said that, yeah.
And I can point to groups throughout my country in the U.S. and states and cities. There's groups that are so focused and so want education and are all over learning as much as possible so that they can grow and be better. Again, there's groups, just as there's groups that just whine and say, the if onlys. Well, if only I lived over there. If only I had this. If only I had that. So again, it comes down to the human condition, doesn't it? It comes down to the individual. And I guess that's part of why I was thinking, what is it that we can do? Can we?
Yeah.
If there's groups we come across that culturally in their own family, they've heard a particular way. Do you know what I'm saying? I've been conditioned to think that if I just, Ron, I've been conditioned to think if I just take this job, no matter what it pays, and I have a roof over my head and I have food on the table, that's all that's important. And then I'm going to whine and complain about everything else. I don't know.
And I would say, I mean, from my experience,
That's not a whole lot different than ours.
Maven had a good point here, but I think in general though, what I have seen work is again those small wins, right? I mean, even if you have someone that doesn't have a good attitude, they don't see the point in personal development. Again, if you tune into things that they're really passionate about, so that could be, I don't know, that could be drugs or knife fighting or whatever. Even if they see, hey, how can I practice become better at knife fighting? So I'm less likely to be the one ending up with a knife in me, right?
Right.
I am making a bit of humorous, right? But what I mean is, like, you can sort of tune into some of the things.
You know what I'm hearing from you? This is what I'm hearing from you. Meet them where they are.
Yeah.
Okay.
And fine. I mean, because personal development, again, it's about getting to the stage where you realize you can learn, right? Now, what I said to a lot of the people that I work with is, shut up, don't tell anyone, right? And the reason why I say that is I've had a lot of benefit from that myself. But if you suddenly start telling your parents and saying, okay, I know we haven't done anything in our family, but now I want to go and do this. I don't know. I want to be a manager in some company or whatever. Now the family will always say, oh yeah, but you can't do that because blah, 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 blah. Right? So the thing is, often when you talk with family or friends, they will often take you down, right? Because if they couldn't do it, why should you be able to, right? So what I say to a lot of people in the beginning phase, at least, is don't tell anyone, right? I mean, if you don't tell anyone, if it doesn't happen, if it doesn't help you, you haven't lost anything, right? But instead, you set a goal, and then when you've reached the goal, you tell people. You say, hey, I set a goal to do this thing, and now I've done it, right? So instead of getting all the negatives afterwards, you just get the benefit that says, wow, you set the goal and you did it, great. Right, so that's one of the methods that I've found to actually work quite well, particularly for people in those kind of families, because it enables you to get that first win, right, or the first couple of wins. And again, when you've done that a few times, right, and that could be anything from stop smoking to go exercising in the morning, or like all sorts of weird things, right? But just getting those few small wins in first really enables you to start changing your mindset, and that's the sort of thing that make you realize, hey, I am in control, right? I can change my destiny. I can change my life.
I've been there. Yeah, I've been there, and that has happened to me. But by the same token, as I grew and started to step out on my own, by telling people what I was going to do, put the pressure on me to do it. So I had to perform, or I'd look like somebody that was a failure, you know? So I think it works both ways. In the beginning, you might have to keep it a secret, you know, and then tell them after you did it. Because in my case, I told people what I was going to do and it didn't come to fruition. They said, see, we told you couldn't do it. You know, but then as I got to be more comfortable with me and what I could do, I would tell somebody, well, yeah, I'm gonna do this.
Isn't that interesting? Okay. See, I'm more like what Mads was describing. I've always done things just quietly. And then the fun part comes when people are surprised at what I've accomplished or done, and I'm like, well, no, that's what I set out to do.
Yeah.
But I would also be one of those that if I said it aloud, that's not what motivates me. It does not motivate me to say it out loud and let everybody know so I'm accountable to you, because I don't feel accountable to you, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so again,
it doesn't work that way for me.
That's true.
People are very different, right? So and that's why I said the way I said it, right?
Okay.
I mean, people get motivated from different things, right? Particularly, I mean, when you talk with sort of very salesy, very chatty people, they tend to very much get motivated by the peer pressure, and they like talking. they like so much talking about what it is they're going to do that actually just talking about it alone actually helps keep them motivated, right? When you're talking to people that are generally a lot more sort of task focused or reserved, they're more like you're saying, Charlene, and I was saying before, they're much more, they prefer keeping it to themselves. And then, because they're not trying to show other people they can do it, they're trying to show themselves they can do it, right? And others might want to show other people that they can do it because that's what gives them belief, right? And it comes back to how do you like being recognized, right? Do you like when you have achieved something, do you want everyone to stand up and say, yay, great achievement? Or are you the kind of person that just want to say, oh, well done, and then get on with things, right? That comes down to a little bit on how you like working with this stuff as well.
Interesting when you're talking about that, people might think it sounds like you or they are bragging about themselves, but I worked at a magazine and it had to do with woodworking, and one of the editors, I was just an independent contractor, and so I wasn't an employee. But we were doing things, and he said to me, he said, Ron, he said, you do some great stuff. He said, but nobody knows about it. He said, people think I'm egotistical because I tell people about what I do and what I can do. He said, Ron, he said, you got to start telling people what you can do, because he said, if you don't tell them, who's going to? And it woke me up to the fact that I have to take the lead and tell people about me, because nobody else is going to but me to start with.
It's difficult, isn't it, though, when you're not geared that way, because that's not my telling you my past accomplishments doesn't do anything for me. That's what Mads is saying, right?
Right.
Or what I plan to do in the upcoming weeks. Or if I sit here and tell you what my goal for today is, it doesn't do anything for me in terms of making sure that those things get done and how I feel about what I'm about to do. Whereas, and I know people like this, like Mads was describing, and they're very successful as well as those who are like us, you and I, Ron. They need to tell somebody else. They need to have it outside, because the minute they say it out loud, then it's real. And it's like, I know a fella that every single day on Facebook, he logs the running that he's done, takes a selfie, takes a couple of images of the run along the way. When he first started doing it, many of us asked him, why are you doing that? We're tired of seeing this, right? Because it wasn't about us. It was about him. And what he was doing is using it as a way to say, and this is how he said it. He says, I've said it out loud. It's out of my head. It's real. I have to do it now because I've said it out loud. And it didn't matter to how many people he said it, but he had to have a place for it to be public. For him, it was just the mere fact it was said out loud. And he's been doing it for a couple of years now. Most of us have stopped following him, and every once in a while we drop in to see, is he still running? And he is. But that's because it's not about us, it's about him. And that's what motivates him. See, that doesn't do it for me. I would venture to say that there's a reason why I'm running. And eventually when I got to the point of why I was, the reason I even started running, then I would talk about it and say I got here because of the running. But it's a sharing of an accomplishment, not a way to keep me moving to do it. They're very different, very different.
Yeah.
Glad you brought that up, Mads.
Again, it is just how people have very natural different behaviors, right? And in the end of the day, I mean, I'm the same as yourself, Charlene, right? I mean, I'm very reserved as a person, and like corporate. I mean, I got into IBM. I have no education, by the way, but I got into IBM, and I've worked in management, right? And it have taken me a lot longer to get to where I wanted to go, because I don't talk as much about myself, right? I just want to let my results talk, right? Now,
Right.
and that's who I am, right? Now, yes, I could have gotten further sooner if I had been talking about it, but it means I would have been talking about it instead of doing what I wanted to be doing.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what happens. We talk about it. It's like it's already done, so we move on to the next thing. We just don't work that way.
In the end of the day, right? For me, it's about what is success to me, and success for me, it was not a question of time. I mean, I wasn't in a position where I said I want to manage people right now. My goal was to become a very good people manager, right? I mean, for me, it was not a question if it was tomorrow or in a week or in a month, right? For me, it wasn't a question of let me do it as soon as possible. It was a question of I will get there.
I hate to leave, but
I hate to see you, Lebron. You come on so seldom, and it's so wonderful when you come on.
Thank you, but I love the conversation we're having. But hey, folks, just carry on. This is too good not to listen to, but I got to. I'm sorry.
Okay, Dan.
Bye, everybody.
I so appreciate. I know that you've stayed until the last minute that you could. I really appreciate that you jumped on with us, Ron. Anybody else want to join me and Mads talking about, do you suffer from if only thinking? How do you not? How do you stop it? You know, that's what we've been talking about now, is how to stop it.
And anyone have anything in life they want to achieve?
If anybody have anything in life they want to achieve. Well, let's see what Mario has to say. He's not ever been on the program.
My friend Mario.
Good morning.
Good morning. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Don't mind me. I'm just cooking breakfast.
Hello again, Mario.
Plenty for us, and we're good.
Hello again. Good morning again. Oh, good morning, I should say. How's everything going with everybody so far, huh?
So far, so good. So what do you think of this if only thinking?
Well, being that we live in a belief-based world, a belief-driven world, there's a lot of folks that essentially will have blocks out there, and if you don't work on the blocks, you're not going to be able to break barriers. And it's as simple as that. I used to be a hypnotherapist. I'm no longer in that practice, no longer in that field, and I can tell you we live in a belief-driven world more than anything. I like to say that we have our outer world and we have our inner world, and a lot of people don't get that the inner world has a lot to do with the outer world, and that in the circumstances, the problems, the situations, it's all how we interact with the reality that's outside of us, you know. And there's a lot of theories around that. There's a lot of information around that. But my personal thing is, you know, as a screenwriter, I always call myself a produced screenwriter. For one, I am produced. And for two, that just kind of keeps me in that position and mindset that all my work will always be produced. Because having a film produced is very valuable for the reason that, let's see if I can put this in another way. In the screenwriting world, if a person does not have some work already completed, it is very difficult for directors or producers to consider you, because they want to know that you're serious and have a long track record behind you. They want to know that you are a consistent writer, not a fly-by-night, once in a while, one-off, one-hit wonder. They don't want that. No one wants to invest in a one-hit wonder. You understand? In terms of the film industry. So for me, I say it every day. I say it out loud every day. Not only am I a produced screenwriter, but I'm a successful one. And I put that out there every single day, because it may not be, other people will say, well, that's delusional. Well, not really. It's not delusional. It's preparation. It's mental preparation. I'll tell you why. If you think of a fire drill, the fire drill is not the real thing. When we practice fire drills these days, it is not the real thing. But one of the things it will do is give you the mental preparedness to understand what the situation is kind of going to be like, right? So the subconscious doesn't know the difference. There's people that say, oh, well, mine does. Well, not really. On a deeper level, the subconscious really doesn't know the difference. because, you know, as a martial artist as well, I've done a lot of scenario-based training over the years and for self-defense. And a lot of times when we put ourselves in the situation, almost like a scenario where it's not the real thing, but we try to provide all of the realness that's behind it as much as humanly possible, what happens is your brain files that away. It takes it and it files it away in your head. And it's like, I have an experience and I'm going to file this away in your mind. And it's great. You know, you actually get mentally prepared. It's like mental preparedness. So whether or not some people consider it to be a little woo-woo or airy-fairy, to me, I look at it as like you are literally, you're calling it out into the universe, but you're also mentally preparing yourself for when it does happen. So I'm working on my beliefs every single day. And the only way to do that is to really journal them and get them down on paper to really understand what your beliefs truly are and to be honest with yourself. There are folks that will just downright lie to themselves, internally, because they don't want to look at the certain things that are there, you know, the things that they have to correct, the things that they have to fix. I truly believe that, you know, every flaw that we have as human beings needs to be transformed. And most people don't feel that way. Most people say, well, why can't I just be the way I be? And I'm like, great, you can do that. You know, if that's what you want to do, that's your choice. But I feel my personal spiritual philosophy with that is that when we transform the negatives in our life, it's not, I'll put it to you like this. We want to be the best for the world, but we also want to be the best for our world on the inside, you know,
okay.
our inner self. So let me just lower this flame here. Sorry about that.
All right. So a few of the things that I heard from you as a way to combat the if only thinking, to prevent it, to keep away the excuse making, maybe to get out of the lazy, get out of the settling, get out of, and what Mads was saying earlier about being willing to take the small steps, is to prepare yourself with the right thinking first thing in the morning, which means to me that won't allow the if only to sneak in through the day. What I heard you say about the journaling, about the processes of visualization, that's not woo-woo. All you have to do is think about any athlete that visualized making those hoop shots, right? And then going out and practicing and making hoop shots. So visualization combined with the prep and the thinking can keep away the if onlys.
Absolutely. You know, mental preparation is a wonderful thing, and I think that it's not often talked about.
We talk about that here a lot.
Yeah, I don't find visualization woo-woo. I think there's some people that do, and I think it just depends on the capacity. Some people just maybe frown away from it, shy away from it. But let's face it, I mean, they've done massive studies over in Russia with visualization for they had a shot putter, a guy that was throwing a shot put, and what they had discovered was that when he threw the shot put, the brain activity of him doing it and the brain activity of him practicing it without anything, and then the brain activity of him visualizing it were all the same. That's what they discovered.
Right.
They were all, the brain activity was the same for all three, whether you had a shot put, whether you didn't have a shot put, and whether you visualized a shot put. So that's what I find really interesting.
Let me tell you what I love about that is it confirms everything that Napoleon Hill was teaching us. Confirms the principles that others have been teaching us for hundreds of years, longer, of course, is that what you were saying, the mind cannot separate the negative from the positive. So therefore, if I tell myself first thing in the morning that I am successful, I am successful. Mm-hmm. And if I'm working towards something in particular, even if I have to take, not even if, but the way I work is the way Mads described earlier, is those small steps so that I can get the momentum going and not be overwhelmed by the large goal that I'm going for every morning, making it a part of my routine to get my thinking on the right path so that I can keep away See, I'm already thinking the negative, right? So that I can stay on the path, which
Right.
is the whole point of Morning Mindset Cafe. I'm here every weekday morning, and that's what we do. We do for an hour, and we talk about what can we take away from this. We're nearing the top of the hour, so I need to wrap this up for the recording. What do we take away from this? What can we take forward through the day to keep going? Now, for me, and it's going to be individual, for me, it is that I'm on the right track. I have my to-do list pre-made. That's all focused. Some is revenue generating activity. Most is, because it's a business day for me.
Right.
And that which I'm going to do is flexible enough to accommodate phone calls, things to move into the day and the schedule that I have. And then there's family time brought in. But I'm moving forward with a positive thinking that I don't suffer from the if onlys, because yesterday showed me and this morning showed me, and the rest of the day can show me, right? I'm preparing myself against it.
Absolutely.
One point to what Mario was saying. I mean, I actually had a coaching client at one point who he had written a book, and he was always saying, "Oh, I want to write another book." So far, I wrote one book, right? And his whole mindset was he had written this one book, and he didn't really know how to get to the second one, right? And the mindset change he needed was, instead of seeing himself as a guy that wrote one book, he had to see himself as an author, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that was the mindset change I walked through with him, and that he, similar to Mario, he started seeing that every morning. He was like, he wasn't the guy that wrote a book, he became the author, right? And as soon as he saw himself as an author, he looked at everything so different, because as an author, that was like, okay, my life is living writing, right? I have to write. That's what I do, right? But when he was there, I wrote a book, it's like, it's something that happened in the past.
You are
right?
so spot on. That's an excellent way to put it, because the minute that I viewed myself as a business owner is the minute my business started growing.
Absolutely. I mean, it's you have to be able to put the action in as well, of course, because the universe likes a lot of action these days. We can say it out there,
Always
but
has.
the action is really crucial, right? To get it
Of
out
course.
there and to make a difference. I think sometimes we forget about that. And I think that being too positive can actually have a certain level of toxicity. So it's about balanced thinking as opposed to...
Are you thinking that too positive is being unrealistic thinking?
No, I don't think it's unrealistic. I think it's unbalanced.
Okay.
Because you need to have some set of critical... It's how you balance the critical thoughts. And I don't think some people understand that.
See, I think that's interesting, because I don't know that critical is opposite of positive.
Well, it's not necessarily. They're both on the opposite ends of the same spectrum. They're the same pole, just flip side of the different coin. Like, for example, me, myself.
Well, hold up. I hate to do it right now, because you're going to go into something awesome, but I'm at the top of the hour. So I want to close out the recording portion. I can keep the room open for another half hour for continued discussion, of which I want to hear, Mario. And so I want to thank everybody who's joined me in the live stream. Those who've joined us in the discussion in the comment area, fantastic way to get our day started here at Morning Mindset Cafe. Thank you for those watching the recording. Greatly appreciate you've taken the time. This is Charlene Burke with Grow Because You Know. That's www.growbecauseyouKnow.com. Let's move forward with the day on purpose, with purpose, to grow our hearts, grow our minds, and grow our businesses. Until next time, have a great day.